Okay, so very concrete. I'm going to start the recording here. I'm going to introduce Orion. There might be some of you who are not familiar with him. So Orion has been at. Can everybody hear me? Okay, my name's Jan. I've been with Fairy Congress, Fairy Council since 2003, and it's been an incredible joy to have Orion at the Fairy Congress because he brings in a whole different perspective. You know, this East Coast queer witchiness, Southern conjure man that just exudes love, which has just been. So we just completely embraced him and he embraced us. And so here we are on Zoom. So Orion Foxwood, for those of you, I'm going to just do a short intro. Traditional witch, conjure man, fairy seer. He is the author of Fairy Teachings, The Tree of Enchantment, The Candle and the Crossroads, The Flame in the Cauldron, and most recently, Mountain Conjure and Southern Root Work. He was born with a veil, the second sight in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, so he was first exposed to faith healing, root doctoring, fairy lore, and second sight practices of Southern and Appalachian culture. He's continued learning and teaching these spirit doctoring practices in workshops, intensive, and lectures in America and other countries. He is the founder and primary instructor in the House of Bree Fairy Seership Institute, where he teaches a multi-year teaching program in the Tree of Enchantment, lore, practices, traditions, and skills. He is a co-founder of Conjure Crossroads, which is a collaboration between 5 Seasons root workers and witches, focused on preserving and promoting the healing and helping benefits of Southern root work, witchcraft, and other folk traditions. Conjure Crossroads hosts the annual Folk Magic Festival in New Orleans. He's the founding elder of Foxwood Temple, a coven dedicated to passing on the traditional witchcraft of his elders. And I have put his website in the chat. If people have questions, they can. This is kind of like the easy Zoom, so if you can put your questions in the chat, and I can kind of copy and paste them, and then kind of field questions afterwards. So Orion, so I'm going to kind of pin your screen on so everybody can kind of see that. And then Orion, I also want to let you know if you need anything in particular. I know you've just had incredible loss last night, and this is kind of, I just want to honor that you're showing up here. If you need anything, if you need anything, if you need to postpone this, we can do that. You know, you just lost somebody. We're here to support you.
Thank you. That's so much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Does everybody see Orion up on the big screen here? Okay, I'm getting nods. Do you get nods? Okay, great.
There we go.
I see me. I'm there.
Okay, Orion, take it away.
Well, first, hello, everybody, and I love you, I love you, I love you. And I can't think of a better place to be, actually, after finding out something so horrible, but to be with people that you love and people on a mission of love. And really, that's very much what this workshop is about, is our mission. And the mission of all who have joined in an alliance, in a co-creative alliance with the undercountry. Now, I wanted to speak to something that happened years and years ago. This was, oh God, I think it was the 80s, really early 80s. I was still in high school and I had hair, so that was a long time ago. So I kept getting these visions, very intense visions of earth changes, very intense visions of what we needed to do as a species to get in step again with the earth. One of the things, we have a saying back home that says you cannot curse the roots and bless the fruits. And we have wandered as a species so far away from our ancestral traditions. And in fact, there were indigenous genocide attempts to destroy so much of it. And so as we have grown extuitively, because there's two ways that we process information, intuitive and extuitive. Intuitive is information that comes from the inside out. Extuitive is information that comes from the outside in. The ancients, all the people who are swimming in all of our veins, they lived by intuition, inner knowing. In fact, when cultural anthropologists are trying to figure out how did they know which, say, berries to eat and which herbs to concoct, did they try them out? And maybe a guy named Ulf ate those berries, he died, and they said, don't eat those berries. Those are Ulf killer berries. That's not how they figured things out. Our ancestors lived close to the rhythms, you know? And in fact, in the craft, we have a practice where we follow the eightfold year, the witch's year, which has 8 different Sabbats and holidays in it, right? We're coming up on one. Candlemas, February 2nd. We just came out of one, Yuletide, which was December 21st. Those 8 holidays, and I bring them up because it's a great example of what the ancient ancestors, the ancestors in all of our blood, because we are all children of the first people. And so we as witches, modern witches, we practice directing our attention towards 8 tides, right? These tides, like Yuletide, Imbolc tide coming up, Roodmas tide, Hallows tide, these are tides, gates and tides through which life comes. What living in that way does, and having Sabbats or celebrations to honor those times and turn our attention in, or practices that have us sitting right in the season, right? Sitting right in the relationship or the discussion between Earth, the cosmos, the moon, and the sun. Because that's ultimately what the turning of the Earth and the turning of seasons is about. There's a discussion going on between the celestial bodies, and that discussion is what produces all life. Magical workers, like witches and like yourselves, we jump into the conversation. We find a way to get in, whether it's following those 8 holidays, or whether it's yoga in the woods, whether it's making offerings at auspicious times for the fair ones, whether it's following the planetary days of the week, whether it's following the moon, but we find a way in. Now, what that rhythm is that we're finding our way in, and again, I used the example of the witch's year, which has the 8 holidays in it, 4 Sabbats, 4 grand Sabbats, 4 solstices, and 4 equinoxes. And the grand Sabbats are called the fire holidays. They follow something called the I don't pronounce this very well, but the Colquith. And the Colquith is the fire of life. It's a Gaelic term for the fire of life. The fire of life, as it falls from the heavens into the land, and it rises up, and it extends its growth out to the parameters of the earth. We call those the primal movements. And the primal movements, this is something for you to work with, by the way, in your movement work and your meditation work. This whole concept of up, down, in, out, and around. The design or the image that it forms is called the spindle of destiny. It's Mother Fate's spindle. All of Earth, as we know, in Earth life, comes because of that. And we watch this during the seasons. And like we're in the winter, at least out here, we're in the winter. So the tide is low. It's down, the sun is down below the equator, slowly making its way back up. And the living things are down. The leaves fell down. The hibernating creatures are down. They're down in the, so it's the low tide. Come Candlemas, we'll celebrate the quickening of the low tide when the mother of life, the father of death, make love in the bedchambers of the undercountry. And in their lovemaking, a year is born, the new child. Now, those kind of ways of seeing things, and I could continue, if we had more time going through each of the holidays of the year. Now, imagine this: if you were sitting in a circle, right, and there's, I don't know, Yule in front of us, and off to the right we got Candlemas, and then after that, spring equinox, and then Beltane, and then summer solstice, then Lammas, then fall equinox, then Hallows. These are the eight holidays. But what they really are is 8 gates. Now, did you know in the old fairy tradition, folkloric fairy tradition, it was believed that the seasons are caused by the trooping fae changing their homes? That they were moving from, say, east to south, and then, or rather east to southeast, from southeast to south, from south to southwest, I guess would be coming next. Anyway, the movement of their homes was in the ancient world what would cause the seasons to change. Of course, we know it's the rotation of the earth. But the truth is, they're both saying the same thing. They're really saying that the beings that we all love so much, when they come as the trooping fae, when they come as a collective potency, an eddy of whites, as they're called, they're so powerful that they keep the turning of the earth moving. They're a part of the invisible hands. So when I tune myself into those holidays, right, and I follow those holidays, what it's doing is these two very powerful and very important things that have gotten lost and that we've got to reclaim: sensitizing and synchronizing with the rhythm of life. Now, women stay not so much through vote, but through their body's mandates. Women are a lot more connected to it. They're connected to the rhythm of the rhythmic tides of the moon, or what's called the etheric waters, as seen in how they're the movement of their menstrual blood, right? And of course, in the ancient world, that was seen as blood that recedes deep inside, then blood that pours out. Blood that just like breathing in, breathing out, just like the heart beats in and out. Ladies, interesting piece of information on synchronizing and sensitizing to rhythms. There's a practice in Appalachia, or at least the part that I came from, where, and almost no one does it anymore. I've seen it a few times when I was a little kid, where, let's say one of you who are coupled, a male and female couple, the female in that couple is having her menses, right? So in this practice, and let's say you're married or you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but usually this is it's opposite gender. What they would do is they would go out and sit. This wonderful woman, when she was, as mom would call it, flooding, would set her on a stone that had really soft moss on it. But it was a very specific type of moss. It was both soft, but it also had prophetic powers. Now, and when she sat on the moss, of course, the blood would come down and then trickle down onto the moss, and if she's not too high up, down into the land. Now, what she was doing was relaxing with the flow of her blood and letting her own soul flow down with the blood and follow it into the land. What he would do was he would be there to keep her protected while she was going into what we call a rapture. And rapture is a type of trance. So what was going on is she was, through the boat of flesh that is her body, she was flowing down on the blood to the land where the blood commingles with the life of the land, so that the land could speak to her and he could record it. Now, this is an old practice. Is that beautiful or what? Now, imagine if that practice was done with all men and women who were couples. Wouldn't it change the relationship with the menses? Because I know so many women who are resistant to it, and the resistance, of course, produces a conflict in the body, which produces inflammation and more pain. But what if we restored the visionary and oracular powers of that stream, So it was seen as the river of blood flowing through the woman and then reuniting itself with the memory of the land. Because remember that the soil is the digested wisdom of everything that's ever lived. I'm going to stop and zoom in on that a minute. Remember, this is very important because as we're looking as a species at colonizing Mars, and you do know that that is in a presidential mandate to be, have a colony there by 2030, a research colony. Now, it's interesting as humanity's looking at its damages that it's done on Earth, and it needs to fix these. And I think in some strata of current contemporary humanity, they visualize somehow that we're going to take off maybe to Mars or somewhere else that we've terraformed after we've damaged Earth. But that's not what's going to happen. We are made of Earth. We all arrived here together on a pulse of light, on a pulse of the original star, right? That pulsed until it found its way into a series of relationships, and in this case, Earth and the sun and the moon. Of course, the light at the center of our world is made out of the sun. Literally, it's a piece of a star. And so our journey here, and I share this little ditty that I wrote because I wrote it really to illustrate how the magic of the fact that all the iron in the universe is only produced one way. All of it. That means the iron in our land, the iron in our body. It all comes from burnout stars. So when you're out at night and you see these stars, and maybe you're looking at one, has that ever happened to you where one really catches your eye and you keep finding yourself staring at it? Now that star might very well be long gone. It's taken that long for the light to reach you. Now I have to wonder sometimes when we're looking up at those stars, and if the memory and the iron in our blood is what's got us looking up. And I wonder, when we're looking up and sometimes going, did I come from there? Is that starlight looking down at you and going to, have I become them? So we are stars with human feet, encountering starlight in all we meet. Know this, grow this, and ignite. And the stars will guide you through the darkest night. We are in the middle of sensitizing and synchronizing ourselves back to the discussion of life, to unravel the false exile. Okay? Even that piece, would you like me to say that slow so that you can get that? The piece on the stars there? See, it is we are stars with human feet. And it's true. Your blood's got the stars. It's got star stuff in it. We are stars with human feet, encountering starlight in all we meet. Know this, grow this, and ignite. And the stars will guide you through the darkest night. And the reason I wrote it that way was we are stars with human feet. Every mineral in our body originally came from another world. All the seed minerals for this planet came from other celestial bodies, right? There's other minerals, of course, that have formed since, but the seed minerals, the minerals we have in our bodies, are primarily from old stars, old planets. And the iron. Perhaps what we're really doing, y'all, is when we're studying these practices and we encounter beings like the angels, or like the angels in the land, the fair folk, the shining ones. In our relationship with them, they reignite us. Yes, we, the stars in human feet, right? Encountering starlight in all we meet. What will heal the world is when we unexile ourselves and see ourselves as a full member of life and the universe. When you can look at each other and look at the trees and look at everything and understand that those two are stars, maybe not in human feet, but in different feet. Or as Michael Beckwith, who has the Agape Church in LA, says, and I want you to close your eyes and take this in, it's so beautiful. We are the stars looking back at themselves. We are the stars looking back at themselves. I want you to carry that into every moment you can in your life, so that when you're walking somewhere, maybe you're, I don't know, shopping, well, after quarantines, lifted, when you're walking past people, think to yourself, there goes a star, and there goes a star, and there goes a star. And deep behind our eyes, behind the flesh and the structures of our body, a single point of the original star that lit all the candles on the altar of heaven is burning. You are animated, and I am animated. And the fair ones are animated by the exact same juice, the exact same light, primal light. And in our relationship with them, they bring us to life, or rather, they bring us to light. Now, I mentioned something about back in, I guess, it was the 80s that I think 80s or early 90s maybe that and no, it's further back, that I started to hear or started to get contacted by, I don't know that I knew that they were fair ones at that time. I just knew that there was big changes coming and that humanity had morphed, and it had morphed into a species that was hurting the earth and it had to stop. I was a little boy, and this is down the Shenandoah Valley, and I went to a school called Round Hill Elementary School. Now it's someone's house. So this was like a one-room schoolhouse. I grew up right very backwoods. And it was a blizzard. It was a classic Shenandoah winter, and the blizzard was blustering, and all the little kids were running around. But I wasn't running around because someone had donated a bunch of these National Geographic magazines. I don't know about y'all, but as a kid, I loved those because of all the pictures, right? And I couldn't afford them. My mom and dad couldn't afford those. Those were expensive. But some rich person had donated all these books to the school. So I was sitting down, I was leafing through them, and I was all happy until I wasn't. I saw a picture, and I can remember this was in the first grade. So what is that, like 7 years old, something like that? So here I am, this little Orion. I had hair then. Well, hair up here, and I'm leafing through these magazines, and I get to this one area, and it's pictures of the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Smokies. Now, I grew up in the Blue Ridge. Now, I don't know if you know this, the Blue Ridge and the Smokies are the oldest mountains in the world. These are ancient, they're part of Pangea. And so, in the image, what they had captured in the photographs in the magazine was these tunnels were being exploded through the mountains, to create highways, like literally cutting chunks out of the mountains. And then the mining and all the stuff that was going on. I started crying. I started crying so hard that they couldn't get me to settle down. They couldn't get me to tell them what was going on. So they called my mama. My mama came to get me. I couldn't stop crying. I was crying really hard. So she calls my daddy, and he comes home, and he used his omnipotent power. He said, son, if you don't tell us what's going on, we're going to have to take you to the emergency room. Well, like magic, I could talk now. Still to this day, I'll do anything to avoid the emergency room. But I share this story because this is when Bree came through. Now I know that, but I didn't know this back then. So my mom and dad are sitting down with me. And they said, son, what happened? Now, I have to add to this that mom said, son, your eyes were black and they had starlight pulsing for it. It looked like I was looking at a night sky. And mom said that I looked up and I stopped sobbing. I looked up and I said, mom and dad, they're trying to kill the mountains. And I can't let them do that. This is a little boy. And I said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a voice so loud they will not silence me. Well, God knows that's happened, And so that was the moment that something other was starting to guide my life back to the fair ones. But it was also during that year that I started getting visions of the earth and some of the peril that she was sort of in or at the beginnings of. And now, in retrospect, what I was getting was prophetic stuff. So It was then in the 80s that it started to clarify that there was something going on in the human world, but it didn't come from the human world. And that was a sort of wake-up call. The truth is, this wake-up call started in the early 1800s. And it's what started movements like the Theosophical movement, the MacGregor Mathers and all the stuff he wrote with the angelic magics and stuff. This sudden call back to the invisibles, whether that was the angels, the ancestors, old gods and goddesses of ancient cultures. And all of this you have to understand. If you look at your history, you will see there was a sudden movement of, and I'll zoom in on a component of it, a movement of interest in the fairies and the fair ones. And what was really happening was an alarm went off. And I call this alarm the co-creative call to action for the restoration of well-being. What was happening was the ancestors were waking up, and they were shaking the human tree and causing major movements like the Theosophical movement, the pagan movement, the earth-centered or earth spirituality movement, which all of us are a part of. And all of you who I have seen for years at the Fairy Congress, and this is one of the big reasons I love the Fairy Congress. To me, the Fairy Congress is driven by the co-creative call to action. It is clearly an envisioned organization and event that is driven by companionship and co-creative partnership. You see, there are certain changes that we humans are not going to be able to fix, things that we broke, that they can fix, that the fair ones can. But they will not come unbidden. Now, I want y'all to, and I don't know if people have had losses with COVID on here, and if so, please hear my love and respect. COVID is an act of grace. COVID is the planet. And now, it doesn't matter whether it was created in a lab or not. Mother Fate had her hands on this one. I want you to think about what the mystery of all this, and then I have something to read to you. The mystery of all this is thinking that there's two ways, other than washing our hands, that we prevent COVID virus, right? One is the mask, and then the other is quarantine. Those are the two big ones, and then certainly cleaning our hands. Now, I want you to think of the mystical thing going on here. I love those two. I love it, and I think of this every time I put my mask on. We stay home during this to protect our breath, to protect our breath from coming into an interaction with the virus. But when we go out, we put the mask on to protect other people's breath. Now think of what that's doing, just the whole concept of it, suddenly making us aware of that pool that we all dip into, that we must, the breath of being. This thing has come to teach us how we depend on each other. It's come to teach us that we've got to protect the breath of our elders and not be so casual and when we go to see them, but disinfect our hands and take care of them. You know, it's taught us the fragileness of things. How wonderful. How wonderful. And acts of compassion are happening, and also, what a tricky little virus it is, it's also shown us our ecological effect. You know, with the quarantine, it's changed. Y'all, we are sitting in the time that we've all been rehearsing for. We are sitting in the beginnings of the age of Aquarius. We just came through a time that seemed dark. And the rough road is not quite done yet. But the thing you must understand is you cannot, I like to use the word fight, but you cannot fight what you cannot see. And we need something to bring those forces that are eroding at the tree of humanity, that need to be loved into healing, to come forward. Boy, have they been coming forward lately, you know. But you see, a silenced wound, there's a saying back home where I grew up, and it is, nobody heals until the ghosts speak. My mother said the worst thing is a silenced ghost. What that's about is that No one truly heals until the wounds of the ancestors have been spoken, until we've turned our attention towards our roots. And whether you know it or not, you responded to the co-creative call to action. Now, those are all fancy words, right? But if you take those away and just get it straight to the bone, you responded to the ancestors crying out for the earth, crying out for this blessed hoop that we all live on together. You responded to it just like the Fool card, me too. You know how the Fool card in the Tarot, you have this androgynous being. They're standing on a cliff, and they have a little hobo bag, all the sort of their belongings, but really it's all the stuff that comes with them from their previous life. Down at their heels, they have the dog, right? Which is some say it's animal instinct or ego going, no, don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. And then we have this androgynous figure, the fool, that is standing, looking heavenward and getting ready to step off a cliff onto the cloud of unknowing. Well, that should seem familiar to all of you. It certainly does to me. When we came to this stuff, this work that we do, we didn't come really with a clear vision. We were just following an interior something, as if there was like that OnStar system. There was an address in us, and we were following it. And we made our way to things like the Fairy Congress. What we were following was the blood summoning us back to the intimate, invisible relationships with Earth, its rhythms, and its invisible denizens. You ever notice intimacy is in the invisible? Intimacy, when it flows like Jan's here, and a dear friend, I love him so much. Really, the most beautiful, intimate moments we've had has not been when we've been talking. It's when we've stopped and paused a minute and looked in each other's eyes and just felt that same thing at the same time. Or when we have spoken of something of our interior and we're invited into intimacy. Intimacy is an invisible force, just like love is. You know, when we talk about love, we don't talk about it like other emotions, right? We don't go, well, you know, how you doing today? I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling love. No, we don't. We talk about it as a force independent of us, but that we are made of. We fall into love, like it's a pool or something, right? And we fall into it. So we're being tuned back in through this co-creative call to action. I'm so happy that the virus has forced such things as this global conference a global Congress online. Here's why. We are fairy workers. We work in the liminal space. We work in the place between breaths. We work in the place between where the woods and the clearing come together. We work in that margin. We work betwixt and between. And the internet is a place that is no place. It is a time that is no time. Crosses all the zones. We're in a timeless state. We're also able to do work together without creating a carbon footprint. I think that this, what we're doing right now, taking our work onto the internet, is affecting the inner worlds. Take it to the liminal place, the in-between. So I want to do an invocation with you real quick. So this is the invocation to the undercountry. Now, when I wrote this, well, I take that back. When it wrote itself through me, because it arrived, literally, I was up in front of a group in Houston, and it was about the Western mystery traditions. It was called SOTUS, Society of the Magical Arts, I think it was called. And there was all these Kabbalists and all kinds of magical folks there and scholars. And they wanted me to come and talk about witchcraft and fairy tradition as one and two of the Western mystery traditions. Of course, I was setting them right when I got there. I said, it's not one of them. It's the mother of them all. What are you talking about? So, but I got up and I didn't know what in the world I was going to say because I hadn't arrived yet. I opened up the well to the underworld and this prayer came. So I'm going to speak this prayer, and if you would, turn your hands downward towards the earth. Just allow yourself to be aware of the pulse of the earth. Let yourself be drawn into that pulse by gratitude. Everything that is our everything comes from this earth. Our food, our water, the very flesh of the people that we love, our flesh, our bones. Such givingness. We're aware that there is a pulse that arrives from the deepest places in the land, where a dreamer, an androgynous giant child, sleeps on the bed of blue flame, dreaming the world into existence. And the light that is the closest star that burns at the center of our world, it pulses itself up, unfurling like a fiddle leaf fern, unfurling as all the species and minerals of our world. People say to me sometimes, Orion, life comes from the heavens. I said, no. Light comes from the heavens. Life rises from the earth. So feeling that pulse of life, feeling that gratitude rising to your hand, that aliveness, and let it open like a well of blue light before you as I read this prayer. Good neighbors of the underrealms, awaken unto life. Ban the bane and bless our luck, and banish blight and strife. Open now the ancient ways of life and love with land. Open now the hawthorn road as we extend our hand. Now reach your hand downward and feel the hands of the shining ones of the living land, those who live in the memory of the land, those who know the ways of restoration, and they take your hand as you help them up the spiral staircase into this world, into this strata. And we continue. Lead us to the magic road and back in touch with thee, and we will know our kin in rock and cloud and sacred tree. We end this call with heartfelt breath and consecrated deed. Now feel the hands that you grasp, the hands that you helped up those steps into this world of humanity. In your hands, they are placing seeds of light from the original tree. These seeds are to bring blessing to our world. These seeds are to go out to all the people of the world so that the tree grows through everyone again, so that all will find themselves as branches upon this great tree, and they no longer will suffer from the illusion of isolation. So now we're going to repeat this thrice. Y'all ready? With these seeds of light in our hands. Blessings to all by root and flower and wind-scattered seed. Blessings to all by root and flower and wind-scattered seed. Now on the third one, blessings to all by root and flower and wind-scattered seed. And blow those seeds. Feel them caught on the winds of magic. Feel them going to the White House. Feel them going to Congress. Feel them going to distant lands. Feel them going to wherever is needful, where people have forgotten, where the illusion of isolation has made them forget who they are, how they are. You see, exile and abandonment is the progenitor of true evil. We now have to help our people reconnect and let the connection heal us all. Let these seeds of light take root where'er they fall and produce more seeds, and awaken the ancestors in the land, the original ones, and awaken in the soil and in the sand of everywhere on this planet, so that as people walk, the wisdom rises up again to them. You see, there is a great mystery in our lives as humans. All of us descend from the original people. How could it be otherwise? All of us are walking with forces that are now wanting to release the wisdom of the world, the wisdom of the past. And I want you, as one of the things to have from this workshop, is to connect into that as well. So there's a saying in the craft, no wisdom leaves the world. Even if indigenous peoples, tribes who have died over the years, who are even went through genocide, the land, the soil remembers. Everyone's bones somehow make its way into the land, and the land remembers. Did you know there's an old teaching in fairy that there are 3 oceans that produce all life on Earth? An ocean of brown-black, an ocean of blue, and an ocean of green. The ocean of green is the green world, the plant world. The ocean of brown-black is the soil. The soil is an ocean itself. And then the one that's blue, the water. So much of the consciousness we want to bring forward now is to reconnect again to what the ancestors had. We want to restore the roots back to the tree, and the roots will heal us. So I'm going to do a little working with you. And I want you to just get yourself comfy. We are all part of a solar system, a vast, incredible solar system, circling around our sun along with other planets and moons circling around those planets. And we're going around that sun as the sun is going around the galactic center of the universe itself, or of the Milky Way. So we are journeying, actually we're journeying around the Milky Way, but we're journeying through space together. And guess what? Space is also flowing through us. Each one of us arrived here on a river of stars, a pulse of starlight originating from the first star that lit all the other stars, because every star beholds that light. Think of this. There's Suki in there. Suki was once a radiant, well, she hasn't changed much. She was once radiant light. Look at her, she's still radiant light. She was a radiant pulse of light at the heart of a source, pondering, what would happen if I Sukiized myself? Well, we know the answer to that. The source became fabulous. So all of us are products of a pulse of starlight and breathing space, rhythm and radiance, extended all the way from the celestial body, the primal celestial body, to Earth. And guess what? That stream is still arriving. So as we're passing through through the cosmos on Earth, there's a stream of light constantly pouring in towards you as we go past these stars. And it's becoming you. A stream that became Jan, a stream that became each one of you. And I wanted to tune us into that, because we have to know that we are more than a zip code of creation. We're more than a locality. We are an alchemical presence. We are a universal epic happening in human skin. The upper world, middle world, lower world of fairy is really it's simple. The truth is there is no up and there is no down. That's all a illusion. And it's an illusion because of the way that we're built, right? The truth is there's out there, here, and in there, right? That's more accurate. So the upper world is the light that's ever flowing towards us. as we pass through the cosmos. And it flows towards us as as a waterfall of light. So keep that in mind as we tune in to the fall and the resurrection of light to life. So be aware of the sun and the moon and the stars in the heavens. Be aware of times when, as a child or later, you looked at the heavens in this vastness, maybe the stars at night, pondering of where you're from and where you're going and the vastness of it all. You are that. You are that becoming a human experience that has never been before. It's never been Jan before. And you have to wonder when you look at Jan or you look at each other, what was the universe pondering? What was the idea that it had that had such aliveness that it pulsed all the way from the celestials into the terrestrial, into the genetic, and here we are. So as we're aware of the sun, the moon, and the stars, the primal light of eternity that is arriving, we're aware that every single person and thing that we encounter is a product of light arriving and animating the minerals of our world and the cellular structures of our world into a coalescence. You are a zip code, an ecosystem, a planet with feet. So feel that golden white light of the stars arriving now. And it's pouring down over you, aligning you to spirit, aligning you to your celestial origins. And as that light falls into the land, it rises up from the memory of the land and garbs itself in all the species of the world. But in this case, it became you. You are the river of stars. You are the waterfall of light that has fallen into the land, touched the soul of the world, was animated by it, and then rose up through the ancestral stream to find all the codings to become the mystery that you are. So just be aware then of that stream again arriving from above and then resurrecting from below as a fountain of blue silver light pulsing up. Rises up as the light descends down in a constant alignment of celestial, terrestrial, and ancestral. Now sitting in that knowing, in that presence, feeling the pulse that rises from below and the descending stream that you rode here on, the stream of light. I want you to know this. We are emergent beings. We're ever arriving. You were born, but you're still borning. You're still arriving. And you'll arrive until you have burnt out this body or you've discovered immortality. And immortality is just when we are undivided in our nature. And we can allow the light to regenerate us. We'll get there. Now sitting with the above and the below and feeling the light within. The pulses at your center. An orange red that pulses in our blood and in our heart. A blue silver that rises from below and a waterfall from above. Now be aware of this power that is behind you. Behind you is the velocity of your past. Behind you is everything you have ever been since you arrived as eternal starlight on this planet and you became many things. We've been microbial. I just know I was a dinosaur. I had to have been in there. I love dinosaurs. But you've been plants, you've been dinosaur, you've been microbe, you've been mineral, you've been all these things over millions of years. It's the energy that is you, originating in the stars, has migrated, and now you are here as the you are today. Behind you is the velocity and momentum of all that you've ever been, human and other. Now, as I even speak that, we can feel the fair ones around us, because they could feel the pulsing peace of who we are arriving. You see, there is no such thing as a past life. You've only had one, but you've had a lot of embodiment experiences, meaning you've risen up into form and back out of form and into form and back out of form, but never truly dying, reassimilating. So be aware that flowing to your moment where you are right now is the stream of time, and in it is the accumulated potency of all that you've ever been, millions of years of potency. Now be aware of the direction before you. Before you, before all of us, is the unclaimed future. We, the fairy people, we are here to become conscious co-creators. A magic the likes of which probably has not been quite the way we're being required to do it today. We're creating together. So before you is the unclaimed future. What does it look like? You responded to the co-creative call to action because you care about Earth. Because you care about life, because you have an uncommon commitment and an uncommon inner knowing that drove you to study, to learn, to find these wonderful people, to be here today. It's because in your center, you walked into this life with a vision. You knew it as a child. You walked in with a vision for how the world truly is supposed to be, and you found your way into service to that vision. So keeping that in mind, to the left of you, rising up from the memory of the blood and the bone and the soil, is the mothers of wisdom. And all the mothers of wisdom that you have known and encountered through your lives on this planet. The medicine women, the priestesses, the witches, the healers, the wise grandmothers, from many cultures, all the places you've been, human and other, they rise up from the memory of your blood, your ancestors. The bone, your pre-human ancestors, because your blood is made and your bones are made of chelated calcium, which comes from the fossilized remains of other living things. So that means your bones are a bridge to non-human life. So rising from your bones is the memory of all that wisdom. We feel the mothers rising from the soil. Everywhere that you go, everywhere that you live, you've been summoned there. You've been summoned there by the power of place to come into some relationship with it, to co-create in that special window into the soul of the world. So that coalescence of the mothers, we feel it rise and it coalesces as a stream, as a lineage to your left. And these mothers of wisdom place their left hand under your left elbow and the right hand at your right shoulder blade. Now to your right, from the memory of the blood and the bone and the soil, rises up the fathers of wisdom, the shamans, the high priests, the rabbis, the wise grandfathers, human and other. We can feel them rising from the memory from in our bones, from our blood, and from the land where we are. And they form a lineage. And with their left hand, they place it at your right shoulder blade, the right hand under your right elbow. Now feel on both sides what's happening. There are those who walk in grace, the wisdom keepers. The wisdom keepers who know your role, they know why you came here, and they've walked with you all along. We never walk alone. We never have. Nothing walks alone. So we feel those mothers to the left, fathers to the right. Feel the strength as they prepare. They'll walk with us as we walk through these changes. And guess what, y'all? In our ancestral memory is answers to every riddle, everything we could ever wonder what the solution is. Because our ancestry doesn't just go back to human. It goes all the way back to the same ancestry as the angels and the fairies. We were beings of light, plasmatic, when we arrived. So feel that strength on both sides. And now I want you to kindle up in your mind, where are we going? Where do we want to go? What does that world in the future that we're moving mightily towards look like? Is it co-creative? Is it sharing? What is it? I want you to kindle that up inside you until you can feel it arrive now, as if you're in it right now. Just take a moment and build that vision of the future that we co-create together. See, we're blessed because we do have each other. And each other has helped us all distill what we feel is right, what we feel is healthy, and caused us to commit to the ideals of a life that is healed. I see a world where we don't have all these chemicals. I see a world where people have released that illusion of isolation and understand we are children of one mother, sister and brother, human and other. And in a world where we don't need all these resources, we share, we have tons of resources, and we plant trees, and we care for the earth. So now, having that vision, and it's more important to feel it than to see it. You see, when you do magic, using the metaphor of going fishing, thoughts is how you throw out the line, but your feelings is how you reel it in. Feel the arrival in the present now of that reality that you wish to create, that you wish to summon into existence. Because this time that we're living in, this world that we're creating together is no longer a spectator sport. It's only participatory. And everyone's going to be required to invest to get in there in some way. We're just lucky enough to have a sense of that and how to jump in there. So now I want you feeling the above and the below, the unclaimed future and the velocity of the past, the breath of being and the pulsing starlight within you that's felt in your heartbeat and in your breath. That forms your center. Feel your center now growing strong and potent. Now I want you to be aware of the velocity of the past, all that you have ever been. And as it's starting to build up, we're going to do a 3 count and then lasso ourselves to the golden lasso to that future. So on the count of 1, we reach back and we take hold of that building power, that velocity of the past. We can feel it strengthening. We're summoning power from our past, power from the stream that we have moved through time on. And this is a resource there for us always. We're extracting the potency, the wisdom of what we've been, gathering it, its creative potential. And on the count of 2, we can feel it. It almost whips around. It wants to be released. Get ready for that future that we all wish to create. And on the count of 3, cast that line forward, that golden cord, feel it lasso around that vision, around that future, so that now the future of your own intentional creation pulls you towards it, and you pull yourself towards it. Now you can let go of the cord, because the ancestors to the left and to the right take hold of it for you. We're building together. So we feel the mothers and the fathers take hold of the cord to hold it steady, to help us keep our feet in right relationship with the directive of our spirit and our vision. And the powers of above and the powers of below. and the mothers and fathers, and the golden cord, and the potency setting at our center all comes together as the center of the creation's crossroads. We are that center. We're stepping into a time it's a wondrous time, because we're getting a chance to see an epic that we all been dressing up for through all these centuries of life. We've been prepping, we've been gathering tools to create the world, the Eden that hasn't happened. Now, how did we wander away from that vision in the first place? I have a retelling of the Eden story that's a little bit different, and it's come from my work with Bree. I believe that the tree of life, or the tree of good and evil, that is in the Adam and Eve myth, is simply the center post of the universe. And the serpent coming down that was lightning. Now, when lightning came down, it gave us fire. And we have to understand fire changed us. With fire, we could migrate from the warm climates to the cold. We could go through the night, fend off the creatures that otherwise would munch us. And we could smelt metal, which was magic. But more than anything, we could cook our food. And by cooking our food, we killed off the different, things that were in it that were killing us, the microbes that weren't good for us. But we also freed proteins that little simian brain was just waiting to get its hands on, to grow, and grow it did. Y'all, the illusion of isolation, the disconnect, the thing that has humanity doing things like peeing upstream and wondering why the water's bitter downstream, or doing things where we're creating things that are harmful to the planet in the long run, harmful to us. All of that is based off of a perspective of the illusion of isolation. My friend Tommy Starchild, I love him, he said, Orion, the illusion of isolation has created a whole nother species, right? And it's true, as that illusion of isolation crept in, and the men were more susceptible to it, because the fire, it gave us wonderful things, but also testosterone is fiery. Because the men were more susceptible to getting overinflamed, right? So this is now about also, we're being summoned back to the holy flame again, to understand where we've gone and where we've been, and how to fix this. We have to unexile ourselves. Now, when I was a little boy, there was this old man, and I know that you probably heard this story before, but it's a core story in the work I do. I was a little boy, and this guy would come down from the Blue Ridge, and he'd come like every month or so to visit my mom. They'd sit down and have coffee, and he'd always bring me a thing of ginger snap cookies, because I love ginger snap cookies. So as a little boy, I'd do anything for ginger snap cookies. So, and while he was there, he would always sit with me, and he would tell me things like the first charms that I learned that way. And my introduction to the fairy world was through this old man. He was really wise, ne'er a tooth in his mouth. Well, he told me this, and I shared this with RJ years ago, and RJ was pretty blown away, because there's so much folkloric material in this simple story that this old man told me. Now, they call me Mike back there. So he said, Mike, you got to make right with them folk. Them folk is one of the names for the fair ones. You got to make right with them folk. Them folk can snatch your prayers before they reach the ears of God. They're the original ancestors. We're the visitors. He said, and when we break the laws of nature, we can't ask God to fix it, because he don't know how. He gave the world to them. Now, that story was told to me as a little boy. It was young. It was 7, 8, maybe something like that. And Mom wrote it down, and I memorized it later. because I just listened, as a little boy. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, right? But I was looking at him absolutely taken by the story because I wanted to get at the ginger snap cookies that he had, But what I didn't know is he was giving me the foundations of understanding why we're all doing this. So now let's go back a minute. I talked about there's a co-creative call to action that happened in the human spirit, called us to such things, earth religions and fairy things and all these things. And then we had to find our way in towards it. We had to find a way to sensitize and synchronize ourselves with the rhythmic tides of life. And then we found them, our contact with the angels in the land. Now, to take this story this man was teaching, and I had no idea when he was sharing this stuff that this was going to be stories I'd be telling for the rest of my life. But that's how wisdom often is. We don't know it when it drops in our lap, that it's an incredible thing as we grow to be able to wear it and know what it means. And he said, Mike, you got to make right with them folk. He's saying you've got to make right. And he didn't just mean me. He didn't, because as a matter of fact, I thought, what did I do? As a little boy. And Mom said, no, baby, he's not talking about you. He's talking about humans. We've got to make right with the spirits of the land. Them folk, because I never used the F word, fairy. That was more of a British term. And so these are more Scottish, Irish folks. So it was political. So got to make right with them folk. Them folk can snatch your prayers before they reach the ears of God. That was very chilling. Because what he's saying ultimately is that they're involved in the creative powers of this planet. That when we give out prayers, it's often them that help. So you got to make right with them folk. And then here's the other chilling piece. They're the original ancestors. Hear this, he said, they're the original ancestors. Because I asked many years later as a teenage boy, I asked him, I said, are you telling me that they're our ancestors too? And he said, yes, of course. That's exactly what I'm telling you. They're the pre-human ancestors of all life. There is nothing of this world older. And so he said, you got to make, I can feel the room's filled with them right now. You got to make right with them folk. They can snatch your prayers before they reach the ears of God. And he said, when we break the laws of nature, we can't pray to God. Ultimately, he's saying we can't expect a sky being to come and fix the problems we broke. We got to instead go to them. Now, I believe this work of this Congress and the work we're all doing is the kind of work that's going to save our species. Because we're in the middle of an extinction event. And if we can't stop it, we're watching one of the most massive die-off of species in the history of this planet. And it's all caused by the human hand. Now, some scientists say it is reversible, or at least some of it. But that reversible, that ability to get it to turn around, happens through consciousness changes. And the more of us that tap in to the unseen, intimate side of nature, and thus unexile ourselves, such that the dormant original wisdom that's inside of us comes, I guarantee you, you know things that, A, you don't even know you know. And you know things that just arrive. You don't even know where they come from. You're like, did some being tell me this? Where did it come? No, it came from your ancient memory inside you. So what we are becoming, the reason I did that technique, by the way, a minute ago, was there are certain invisible forces that we can all connect into as we respond to the co-creative call to action, but also as we look at the changes going on in our world and looking at Washington, D.C. and all these things happening. Y'all, these are not signs of bad times, just the opposite. These are signs of good times. Because you see, when you have shadowy forces just under the strata of consciousness, just barely perceivable, right? But you feel them, you know they're there, but you can't name them. you also can't really cure them. We had to have these forces to rise up so we could see them. So then we could play magical whack-a-mole. No, that's just a little humor, but you cannot necessarily fight what you're not, and I don't like to use the word fight, but resolve what you're not aware of. This time today, how much time do I have to? Jan, I'm looking down here to see how I'm doing. I still have like 15 minutes or so, or 10 minutes. This time that we're in is at the intersect of the old and the new. Now, I just started putting out what's going to be a series of, I don't like to use the word prophecies, but that's what they are, really. They're knowings that suddenly arrive about where we are and what's going on, and I've been starting to put them up. We are standing right as the shadows of the past are clinging on, and the light of the future is pulling us ever mightily towards it. And we're at a time when the ancestors must speak, and all the wounds of our people be heard, witnessed, and loved into healing. We who are doing co-creative magic have to work with the human and the other ancestors. You're already working with the other ancestors, working with the fair ones and the elementals. These are all in Davic realm. These are all the ancestors of life here on Earth. So there are things that we're doing at House of Bree. I just want to let you know this too. There's on Monday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on my Facebook site is going to be a live feed. And this live feed, I'm going to be leading people in the River of Blood work to go find the ancestors of this country and where they are caught in entanglements and entrenchments of the past. You see, all the problems we've seen started hundreds of years ago. And if we go back, we simply find in the Great River where those ancestors are caught, entrenched, or entangled in paradox, and help them out, and we will heal so fast. So on Monday night, if you're able, please dial in. You know, just go to my Facebook site. If we're not friends, we'll make that happen. We anticipate there's going to be hundreds of people dialing in on this.
What time, Orion?
It's 8:30, but that's Eastern Standard Time. 5:30 for y'all. Yeah, and it's going to be not going to be long. It'll probably be, well, it depends on how much I talk, right? But I'm going to try to keep it at around 45 minutes. You know, just to let people know what the River of Blood is about and how it works, and then go right in together. You see, the way that we take ourselves, the exponential leap, is we have to go in and heal each other. All of us must heal all of us. We have to get to a place where we go in and we find each other's ancestors that are stuck, that are caught in the entanglements and entrenchments of their memory. You know, we still have souls there from Civil War, from Revolutionary War, from definitely emancipation and slavery times, all these. But see, the way this stuff works, and as all you know who've done quantum work, when you go back the stream of the River of Blood, back to the origins, go back to the person, or the shade of the person, where the entanglement started that now we're experiencing downstream, and you help them out of their paradox, everything downstream changes. It's a powerful form of healing. So I hope y'all can join me with that. Other things that I want to say some about. There are two forces that might be visiting you at this time when we're standing in this fulcrum of change, right? And that is reverent rage and sacred melancholy. Now, sacred melancholy is easier to talk about. Sacred melancholy is like a sadness, a reflective sadness. Some people talk about what the good old days and whatever those good old days were, or maybe from COVID and all the things we're going, reflecting on the losses of our loved ones. But also there's a deeper one going on. Now, if you know, like the mysteries of the weeping Mary for Jesus, or the mysteries of the weeping Isis for the dismemberment of Osiris, there is a holy weeping that happens when in compassion you see the world being torn apart. Well, right now, humanity in some ways is being pulled apart. It's being pulled apart to loosen up those threads, those binding tethers of the past, so that we can clear this. It's important that you cry sometimes for this. That when you see the people struggling, like when I watched the siege on the Capitol, but I could hardly even talk about it, I was crying so hard. Because we were seeing the frustration of confused people led by a dark king, and filled with an illusion of sorts. But under the illusion is very real pain. We're going to be witnessing eruptions going on, and we have to witness it for each other. I think the next wave at some point is going to be our women. We need to witness their rage for what they've been through. Rage is a good thing when it's consecrated. Rage is what a volcano does when it creates a whole new continent. When it creates whole new islands and all of these things. We're going to have to get ready, because both sadness, grief, and frustration, anger, and then the fear of the unknown is going to be cropping up a lot in people. You, the magic workers, the healers, need to know that this is normal. An era is dying so that the new age can be born. We are in the age of Aquarius. It has begun. And, one day I was sitting around, and there was these cocoons that were on a little, like a shrub. And in there I knew was a percolating caterpillar dissolving its DNA. They dissolve their DNA and reconstruct it. It's magic. But you're not going to tell me that was not that was comfortable. I bet it itched. I bet it felt weird. But the caterpillar knows that it knows how to obey the wisdom that is deeper inside of it. In these times of change, the very thing that led you to do the spiritual work you're doing now is the thing that will give you comfort all the way through these changes. There is a piece of you. I'm leaning inward because I would just want to touch you and love you. There is a piece of you that is so freaking wise. The piece of you that led you to the work you're doing now. And that piece knows all is well. Are we sitting in a dangerous fulcrum? Oh, yeah. Magical work is not for the safe place. Magical work is jumping right on into the crucible of change. And all of you are very much magical people. So get comfortable with seems like uncertainty. We're all just fools standing on that cliff in the tarot that we see in the Fool card. Keep your eyes upward. Keep your eyes towards your highest ideal. And never forget that there's a wisdom that's running through you that led you even to this gathering or to the communities you're in, doing the things that you're doing. You didn't know you were going to be doing this probably as a teenager, but you were following something. You had a divine restlessness that said, something's not quite right, but there's something that can be. And you worked with both. Sitting in that fulcrum, well, we're there now together, except this is an exciting one. We have got to hold these threads in place. Like we did that magic a minute ago, we've got to hold to those threads and let not turn ye aside. At times it's going to seem scary. Like when COVID came, people were freaking. And Bree kept saying, all is well. All is well. She said, don't resist the lesson. Drive straight into it. And we will be okay. But it has to be all of us to heal all of us. And there was a global change. There's no doubt about that. So we are working as a species to heal the original wound of humanity. Now, I've taught about this before, the dampers on the human soul. Some years ago, I was working with Bree, and I would go and I would teach at different gatherings. I would teach specifically at PantheaCon, and I'd have like 500 people in this room. And I'd done a lot of visionary work to get at what they needed for that year. And I'd go each year and I'd do that work. And people would get excited and it really filled them. But then the next year I'd come back and they were broken again. So many of these good people. So after a few years of seeing that, I got upset with myself because I said, I can't give Band-Aids. I want to give real healing. So I went to Bree and I said, Bree, there is a wound in the human spirit. And it's a core wound that we all have. I have to know what it is to be effective. I don't want to give a half of the healing. That's sort of like Martin Luther King said, a half truth is a whole lie. I said, Bree said, I cannot tell you the core wound. I can only show it to you inside you, and you may not survive. Most don't. And I just did a gulp, and I said, well, I'd rather die an honest healer than live a partial liar. And so we journeyed into it, and I did almost die. But what came through that journey, I share with you now, and that's the dampers. You've heard me say them before, and work with these, work with these. These are the 4 primary wounds. And as we know them, we can heal them. But really, there's only one, and then 3 symptoms. The primal wound is the illusion of isolation that crept in when our nervous system grew so fast in the advent of fire. We grew so fast we became almost another species, and then started saying silly things like, nature's there and we're here. I return to nature when I go camping. Well, where did you go? You're made out of nature. That's an illusion, clearly. The illusion of isolation causes the abandonment, fear, fury, and shame. The fear that comes in is we know that we're leaving something behind. We can't figure out what it is, but we know we did something wrong, and we build mythologies around that. That we're being punished. And then that's the fear. Then there's the fury. The fury is, well, then, I've been disconnected from the whole, screw the whole, then I'll just take what I can. I'm gonna make life, obey me or give me what I want. And we can see that in people. So they got fear, and then that's the fury, and then there's the shame. The feeling that somehow we've done something wrong by being human. Because what all of that is based off of is intuitively, inwardly. We know that something's wrong, and the thing that's wrong is so easy to fix. We drifted too far away from being a thread in the great fabric of life, from being a neighbor in the planetary family of life, being a part of it, being in it, being a protector of it. And so the illusion of isolation is the first one. And the core abandonment, fear, fury, and shame. There's abandonment wound, and it causes fear, fury, and shame. And the second one is the desire to possess, to have more, to have things, to control. And so it's desire, illusion of isolation, desire to possess, then the resentment of change. The thing about, things change and I can't control them and I don't like it. Humans have a real issue with that. And it causes them great grief. Often we can't embrace the mysteries of death because of that. Death is not supposed to be such a major thing as it's become. It's become far too much a death. It's because we're thinking the body, love it that I do, is all of us. And it's not. Or this is the only time we reanimate. It's not. We have a very perpetual life. So, illusion of isolation, desire to possess, resentment of change, and desire for absolutes. The desire for absolutes is the final symptom of that core wound. And that shows up as fundamentalism of any type. Because you see, the desire for absolutes is, I must have the answer. It must be this rule, and I must know it. And the reason is what's fueling that is, and if I'm wrong, I'll never get back into the graces of God, back into Eden, whatever is playing out in the person. I'll never be right with life. And the reason that doesn't work so well, to quote my mama, is my mom said it to me as a little boy. She was scolding me and I didn't like it. Now I'm growing up and I know what she meant. And it was such wisdom. Mama said, son, how many people got to be wrong for you to feel right? And that's the core of fundamentalism. There's got to be a lot of wrong so that the fundamentalists can feel right. We have to heal these things, and they're easier than people can imagine. It all starts out with a relationship with the rhythms of life itself. Your breath is your primary healer. One of the things I teach is breathing is how we shape eternity and how eternity shapes us. Meaning, when we breathe in, we're literally breathing in from the great nothingness, from space itself, in the environment of Earth. And as we breathe it in, we're breathing eternal presence and spaciousness in, and then we're releasing out of us the constrictions that we have. And so, as I say, with every breath I take and release, I cast a spell of love and peace. Get into conscious breathing from time to time. Now, where I grew up, you did this, they call it quaking or rocking, and we had rocking chairs we would often use. But you would breathe, and with your breathing in, you'd go back, breathing out, go forward, and in, and out. When you see elders in Appalachia sitting on rocking chairs, looking like they're dozing off or dozed out, they're not. They're in trance. They're talking to God. So one of the ways that we can help ourselves is understand that our breath keeps us in the rhythm with eternity. It keeps us in the breathing. In fact, there's two major places. Rhythm finds its place in our lungs, with the constant rhythm, the movement with the ocean of space. And so we breathe out, our lips are on the mouth of eternity, and then it breathes us in. And you can do that reversing. Like one way of doing this is, you can do it right now real quick. Be aware of the space around you, and then the space beyond that, and space beyond that. When we breathe in through our mouth is on the mouth of eternity. Feel the presence of eternity in its mouth upon ours. Now take a breath, and as you do, you're breathing in eternal presence. And let that breathing in find all the places of restriction and constriction inside your body, inside your spirit, and then breathe out. Let eternity take that breath and change it. So one way of doing this is you're drawing in the breath of eternity and then breathing out into its mouth. And then reverse it. Eternity is breathing into you and breathing you, and then it's drawing your breath out. And then reverse it. You're breathing eternity into you, and you're breathing it back out into the mouth of eternity. Now, the reason this has great power for healing us is the more you do that, the more you're aware, where can you be exiled to? You're in the presence of the source of everything. And the breathing is how you're in touch with the breathing void. The nothingness that becomes everythingness. Right? Now you can tie magical work to your breath too, because it's something you do all the time. I'm pretty sure. So I have tied to my breath that whole, with every breath I take and release, I cast a spell of love and peace. So that with every time I breathe in, I want to find those places. And I don't need to name them either. I just want to feel that breath go in and find the places where spaciousness is needed, where I'm holding on to things, past, most it's the past, memories, all kinds of things that we hold on to, because we're often haunted houses with feet, And so breathe in, let that eternal presence find those areas that need space, and sort of caress it so that it releases. And as we release, let those things that bind you and reduce you, let them out. And then breathe in spaciousness. And while it's in your mouth, think peace, love, and healing to this world. And breathe out. Breathe out that on your breath into the world that we're all breathing together. So that's a way to, anything we can do to connect into these rhythms, first of all, will heal us. But the truth is you're already doing it. I think I always like to speak of why the Fairy Congress and why is it so important? Especially now when we've had an attack on the congressional chambers, y'all. What is a Congress? What is that Congress? A Congress is a coming together where decisions are made, where things are shaped, where whole structures that form our destiny, our futures are formed. That's what our Congress is for our government. We've all sought a different kind of governance, that there's an intelligence that flows through everything, seen and unseen, and thresholds in between. And it flows through you and me and everything. That's our government. That's the CEO. And then we have joined hands with the children of the dawn, the beings that were here when the world was luminous and hadn't even cooled yet. They're that old. Imagine what they know. We humans are the grasping hands of a benevolent conspiracy between the Heavenly Father and the Deep Mother to bring about a creature, a being, us, with free will. A being that can choose whether it listens to what it innately knows or whether it defies it. And sometimes defying it is okay. I mean, we watch teenagers, everyone knows who's raised teenagers. They have to disobey you at some point. They have to. They have to feel their will and the consequences of that. That's how they grow. So we're reconsecrating our will. We are a unique species that was created by a source that wanted to know its own self. Now imagine this, y'all. You're the source. God got us all that is. And you can do anything, right? You can be anything. And you've become planets and you've become suns and moons and all these things. But there's a problem in this whole picture. Everything has to obey you because you're inside of everything. I think that would be called boring because that means everything in creation is a yes man. So the source in its infinite wisdom comes up with a being, us, a being that dreams for the creator, a being that can say, no, I'm not going to do it the way that's planted in me to do, by the source that's in me. I want to try something different. And by doing something different, sometimes it does something not so good, but sometimes it also does something awesome and creates innovation that our world and our universe has never seen. We are the grasping hands of a curious creator, learning about the love within itself and the far ranges of its innovation. And we were born to be that being. And now what we have to do is live in a state of connectedness and a state of individuation at the same time. And that's the beautiful mystery that's before us. It's quite doable. You see, sin, the word sin, is an ancient Aramaic word. It simply means missing the mark. It didn't mean ticking God off or making some big mistake. It meant missing the mark. And the reason Yeshua taught that was our soul is the piece of the infinite that's inside of us. When we learn how to fall into its wisdom, it knows everything that the source knows. But when the brain gets in there and second guesses it, the brain, because remember the brain is really not out the brain is out for neuroplasticity. It wants experiences. It's an experience junkie, and which makes it fun. It's a fun companion in life. But it can also be a high chair tyrant that can't get enough. The soul that we have in there is the mind that is ancient and deep. When we wander too far away from its guidance, we put ourselves in danger. Our species has done that a lot. Now we got to get back to intuition. We've got to get back to the part of us that's also a part of that tree and that stone and that stuff, until we can hear the trees speak and the heartbeat of a stone. We haven't fully arrived yet. Y'all, we're on our way there. Black Lives Matter. What a wonderful thing. Because if we can get and hear the wounds of another, and then we can have women's lives matter, and this lives, all of us, to have those wounds heard. You see, when you hurt, I hurt, because you're just another part of me. When we get to that place, we're going to elevate. But first, we've got to expulse. We've got to get the things, we've got to purge, we've got to disentangle and disentrench. Remember what you know. Remember, think back to the miraculousness of what led you to what you're doing in your spiritual and magical work now. And all the highways and byways of life that somehow you followed and took you right to what you need to do and be. Follow that same wisdom through the changes that are going on now. And we're going to be real all right. We're going to create a world that hasn't been. Eden ultimately hasn't been yet. It will. It will. Sometimes you have to break things to learn how to fix them. Thanks for having the courage to reach to the ancestors of all life. Your intuition led you to that. The ancient part of you led you to that. I don't know which one of you, or all of you, will save the world and save humanity. So we're on our way to elevating, y'all. So there's going to be some shedding, but it's all good. Just remember, breathe. I heard Jan take a breath in. Jan, I think we're close to our time, or are we over our time?
We are over our time, but there is no time with you, Orion. Thank you so much for blessing us with your wisdom and grace, and the energy transference here is pretty amazing with you. Thank you. Yeah, this is what we do.
The song of the seer applies to us here. Y'all have heard me sing it. And it goes, we are a people of the earth. We are a people of the sky. We are a people of the heart. We are remembering. We are remembering. We're remembering the world, y'all. We're piecing it back together. You're going to be all right. You've been all right all along. You were born to make miracles.
Thank you, Orion.
Thank you. I love you all. And can I give one last thing? It's not a teaching, it's a blessing for everyone as they go.
Blessing.
Look forward to the day we see each other again personally.
Yes. Can we do more things like this, so we can see each other at least?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
We're going to come see you Monday night for that River of Blood activity you mentioned.
Great. Let's do it.
Fantastic.
I just love you all, and I need you to know that the miles mean nothing. Nothing. Love knows no bounds, and I think of y'all so often within my heart, so in my heart. So this little blessing for us all. Reach upward to that great waterfall of light that's becoming you, that's becoming everything. And feel it as it's descending to us. And then let's bring that cloak of the angels down for each other, for our community, and all we love. So We reach up to that waterfall of light and we feel it falling down to us as we incant. I call down the cloak of the angels. Fall down as a waterfall of light, guiding, guarding, and blessing you and us by day and by night. And take that garb of light, that cloak of the angels, and feel it extend across the miles to each other, our community, and those we love or like us. Keep us clear, aligned, and helpful and healed. Then take that to everyone you can and every place you can. And call down the cloak of the angels for them. So we're going to heal this world. And it is so, as it is, as it was, it ever shall be.
So motivated.
Thank you, hon.
Thank you. Love y'all.
I love you.
We love you.
Thank you.
Ryan. Take care.
I'm seeing faces coming up. I'm seeing more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Orion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Love you.
So much, Ryan. Love you,
Thank
Ryan.
you.
Take care.
Ryan, you're wonderful.
Love you, Ryan.
May all
So beautiful.
Thank you.
Love you. Kisses.
Look
You,
at
Ryan.
yum.
Thank you.
So now I guess we look at these beautiful faces, looking at everybody. Now what do we do next? We go from here to somewhere else.
So
You're
actually,
disappearing me.
so we're on a break until 4,
Yeah,
and
we're
there's a
not-
couple
we're
of
not muted.
workshops. Julie Charette, Nunn, and Joanna Schmidt are going to be doing hour and a half workshops starting at 4. So you just go to the Mighty Networks, go to events, and then you find out who you want to do a workshop with,
Okay.
and zoom in.
I will.
So the video here is going to be posted on the Mighty Networks. I just have to upload it to Zoom and
I love that name, the Mighty Network.
the Mighty Networks. Yes.
Mighty Network.
Um,
You look wonderful, Jan, by the way. You look handsome.
Blessings, brother.
anybody? Orion, do you have any time for questions?
Yeah, sure.
Tom?
Well, I was going to ask you, Jan, if you could just leave this video up, because it's kind of like the tent where everybody just hangs around with Orion for the next 4 hours or so.
There is no time.
There is no time. Yeah.
That's you might choose to stop the recording, and
Yeah,
Orion might disappear.
I've stopped the recording. Yeah.
I'm still seeing recording up here. So
Okay, it's paused.
David had a question.
Brendan.
You can pause.
Orion, David had a question.
Bookshelves. I want your bookshelves. Look at this. Oh my God. Look at that. What's this wooden thing through there? Whew. There's all the. Sorry, I'm looking behind y'all, and some of you got the stoves and great sort of fireplace. You know. So someone had a question. I heard.
David.
Hi, David.
Hey, brother. It's so great to see you, brother.
Indeed. Oop, let me put this
I
down.
want you to know a couple things, and I can ask you a question. Or I'll ask a question first. Did you get the CD that I sent you a year or so ago?
In the mail?
I sent you a CD from my music CD, The Green Man, Son of the Goddess, in the mail.
Now that's. I think maybe so, but I don't remember something coming in the mail though. And you sent it that way through the mail, or did you?
Yeah, I sent it through. It would have gone Canadian Post to USPS.
I don't. In the mail.
We'll probably need to let David go here in a bit, but it's nice he's staying on for us.
Something you could send. You know how you can send a file not on the disk and just send it through email or something.
It could be tricky because they're so large. So it's music files. But I can try and send one again. I still have a couple left.
Okay.
Because you gave me, when you laid the blessing on Glenn and my son, and that blessing was with us. it penetrated and echoed, and it cascaded. And I want you to know that you have been in my personal prayer every day since I last saw you.
Thank you so much. I love you, brother.
And you've been in our family prayer, the regular one, every week. Like, you're so with us and we're so with you. And my love for you is just like a river. I can't even contain it. It's busting its bounds. I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. You know, there are collective traumas that we're embedded within, and the work that you're doing is generative at the edge of the edge of the edge, opening up the space. You're the one that opens the space for the courageous ones to come through. So what do we call you? I don't know.
I don't know, right? So that's I don't know over there. David, that meant the world to me. Thank you. I was here weeping. That meant the world to me. Thank you. I love you. I love you. I'm blessed.
I love you too.
I'm blessed to know.
I'll get your email maybe off Jan, and then we can get your address again, and I'll resend you another version.
I'd like that. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. You know, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm writing another book too, by the way. I'm in the middle of co-authoring a book with Susan Diamond called Crystal Gnosis, and it is about it's coming in from the perspective of not stones as tools and things like that, but as stones as the most ancient living thing on the planet. And this is going to be a conversation changer, I think, and I'm really along, so stay tuned. You know, I think it's going to be helpful.
That's great.
Was there any other questions or anything?
Orion, we're going to call you Threshold.
I like that. You know, I like threshold magic. I like crossroads magic. I like, yeah. Thank you.
You and I are from the same neck of the woods, you remember?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, you were from more like Tennessee, though, right?
No, I was Virginia. I grew up in Livingston, Virginia, and lived most of my life in Falls Church. So I'm not too far from where you are if you're outside of DC right now.
We're probably kin somewhere in there. Somewhere in there, you know. Well, we are anyway. We already are anyway.
Blessings, brother. Thank you so very much.
Blessings. Thank you. Love you much. Love you both.
Ariel Rose, you've got your hand up.
Hi, Orion. Good to see you again, and everyone else here. You spoke of the crystals, and after the work we did last night, I wanted to share with everyone the dream I had and last night. And it was so clear when I woke this morning, it really stayed with me. And the Earth Mother's grid opened up, a lot more crystals came on and lit up, and I saw the connections happening between them. Now my body's ringing, sharing it with you. And it was just so amazing and beautiful, but there was a definite another level that was added to the Earth Mother's crystalline grid last night with the work we've been doing. And now I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to start crying. I love you all.
Your aura is lighting up as you're talking. Oh, look at the kitty. Your aura is lighting up as you said that. I was watching around your crown how that was lighting up. And there's more to come, honey. Be sure to write those things down. And they're going to come. There's going to be a lot of mouthpieces for the changes. And we're all sort of prophets in different ways, you know. Different components of the great message. So keep listening and keep speaking. You know, please. Thank you. Love you. And love your kitty. Oh, hey.
Orion, you know how to put my 2 words in. Did you get your pie?
Is what? Is Robin on there?
Did you get the pie? The new one.
Not the new one yet. You look ominous.
Oh, there.
There. Looking up at you. No, not yet. Maybe it'll come today because we haven't gotten.
I think it's supposed to come today. It's out for delivery.
Okay, I'll watch for it, sweetheart.
And I want you to check your message to because I missed some of the stuff you were saying. The message has the questions for you.
Okay, I sure will, sweetie.
Okay, anyways, enjoy it when you get it. And slather it all over your face.
I will obey, and I will do every bit of that. Thank you, darling. Love you.
Okay.
Love you too.
Bye. Blessings. Bye, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Yeah.
See you at 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Love you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Love you, Ryan. Take care of yourself.
You now.
Oceans of love.
Thank you. Love you.
I feel better.
I feel better.
Thanks, Ryan.
I love you too.
Take care.
Mwah.